To discussion, the Naira took a sharp hit on Monday, plunging to 1,629 Naira to the dollar. Well, in the official foreign exchange market, this significant depreciation from Friday's 1,600 and Thursday's 1,569 Naira rate signals a growing pressure on the currency, despite ongoing efforts by the Central Bank of Nigeria to bring stability to the forex market. Analysts believe external shocks, particularly President Trump's recently announced tariffs, are starting to reverberate across emerging markets, including Nigeria. Joining us to unpack this development is the economist, Dr. Emeka Okengwu. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you very much, Musa. Glad to be here.
Okay, Doctor, what's your thought? Let's have your thoughts on the recent sharp depreciation of the Naira.
Well, it's not really a sharp. It's not sharp. If you look at that depreciation, it's hanging at about 50 kobo to 60 kobo. So it's not that sharp. There's depreciation, no doubt about it, but it's not a slide. So I wouldn't call it sharp.
Okay, with the development now affecting like the Trump tariff we've seen, a couple of weeks we've seen relatively stability in the foreign exchange market, but just recently with the tariffs now and, somehow causing sell-offs across stock markets around the world, how can Nigeria avoid such kind of, vulnerability in its currency?
Well, there are two ways you want to look at what's happening globally. One, you look at it as a glass half full or a glass half empty. And then your responses to the glass half being full or being empty might now become, the trajectory that will now begin to build your narratives. To that extent, we can look at it from, the good parts and probably the positives and the negatives. What are the negatives? The first negative is that you need to understand there's what they call MAD, mutual assured destruction. So there's no one army that's going to be riding roughshod on everybody. America has done this, and I think it's to take the narrative away from the real issues. And for me, the real issues is that they wanted to create some disruption in the BRICS build-up, if you may. Right now, nobody's talking about BRICS. The countries are now weighing their options and then, looking for strategies to first and foremost secure their local economies. To that extent, I think, the Trump foreign policy, in my opinion, might be having that desired effect. Now, the negative part of it is that a lot of countries are now beginning to, cry. Okay, fine, Nigeria is landed with a 14% tariff. But let's not also forget that Nigeria also has a 27% tariff on goods, that are being imported into Nigeria from America. So if we want to play some balance, we should be able to now see how we can be able to ramp up the value of what is being taken out of this country. And for crying out aloud, we can ramp that value. So it's not all a death knell. America is not God. America is not the world. Okay, if America says, I want to protect my citizens' job, I want us to go back into productivity, I want us to pull out of this melancholy of thinking that the world works for us, I think we should be able to see some opportunities in there.
What other reasons could there be for the plunge of the Naira?
Sorry?
What other reasons could there be for the plunge of the Naira?
Of course, it has to do with trade. It has to do with trade. I mean, when you're talking about currency is all about trade. So what are you bringing? At what value are you bringing it? The tariffs, of course, it has a very direct impact on why the Naira is plunging, if you want to use the word plunge. But I would rather use the word slide. So how can you be able to stem this slide? It is to increase and ramp up your production and ramp up what it is you're taking to the market. As long as you have value. Okay, America believes that it has this value because it's the world's market. Everybody looks at America for supply. Everybody looks at America for purchasing. For one simple reason. That simple reason is that they have, disposable capital. That's all. So if you're able to create yours with an economy that has over 200 million people, over 60-70% of them in this youthful age, I don't think we should over panic. Let me be a little bit measured in my choice of words. I didn't say we shouldn't panic, but I think this panic should be able to trigger, some kind of resistance and a new program, some kind of paradigm shift in how we do things in this country.
Now, do you see this current pressure on the Naira likely to persist, or do you foresee a kind of rebound soon?
Well, if we do what we're doing now, it's going to persist, definitely.
Okay.
But if we change our style, I'm sure we can begin to push back.
Then can the CBN truly defend the Naira if external shocks hit hard?
Well,
do you see that happen?
Remember, like I said to you, it is all about what the CBN is not a company that produces goods and services. The CBN, more or less, is a financial advisor, and it's supposed to be advising government, and then, trying to help to hedge, exchange rate disruptions or whatever. So if you're going to be looking at CBN as that person who's going to, wear some warrior armor and then go to battle and save your Naira, yes, he could, but he's not going to be doing that physically. He has to do that by now supporting programs that will be able to enhance productivity. That's how it works.
So now how do we somehow keep this investor confidence with what is happening in the FX market?
Musa, are you talking about the local investor or foreign investor? Because everybody seems to be fixated on this foreign investor thing. I mean, you have more people in this country that probably have, more wealth to invest. It's all about how do you, produce or develop or in place that enabling environment, those policies, programs, and actions that can be able to protect investment. And the first, for me, will be security. The second will be, for me, will be energy. The third, for me, will be skills. The fourth, for me, will be infrastructure. Now, that's the narrative we should be talking about. Now, if you have all these things, you have enough local investors to give you the trillions and billions in any currency that you want to, harness it from.
Now, do you think our fiscal and monetary policies somehow align to tackle this kind of global shocks?
Yes, but I think we need to also get disruptive. We need to get more innovative. We need to get more strategic. For every situation, you need to deal with it differently. And I don't work in the CBN. I guess there'll be a war room now reviewing this. But what I thought the government policy will be is to make a pronouncement that we need to close gaps. There must be some kind of gap closing between the sub-nationals and the nationals. We need to have a national strategy for this. We need to get the academia inside. We need to get professionals, who have ideas into a room or some kind of a meeting to begin to now, discuss this. Not just discuss it as television conversations, but begin to now, grow frameworks, draw plans, review plans, interface with people, and then begin to now, develop strategies that are measurable. Okay, you can have everybody come and say his opinion, but until that opinion is translated into, some kind of agenda, some kind of paper that can be reviewed by others, peer-reviewed by those who can, and then, implemented by those who should implement, we might just be singing, to the choir.
Okay, how effective do you think the Central Bank of Nigeria's recent interventions been in stabilizing the forex market?
Central Bank has done well. I keep saying that.
Okay.
Central Bank has done well in the light of what, we understand that they met on ground. They have done very well and they should be commended. And I think they are doing their best, within the circumstance to be able to keep us afloat. That's to the extent I can talk about the Central Bank. I don't work in there, so I don't have all the information.
Okay. Now, with the global economy adjusting to this new U.S. policy, what should Nigeria be doing to shield the Naira and the economy?
Get very aggressive. Get very aggressive with our production. Get very aggressive with our competitiveness. Get very aggressive with our building the volume that can start creating values. Begin to now look at those things that can first and foremost, give our citizens disposable capital and give our goods, some global flair. That's all. The moment you get that competitive, everybody can become everybody. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, you had 3 countries, in the world that had citizens over 100 million in population that were living under less than $1. Now, let me name those 3 countries for you. The first was China. The second was India. The third was, of course, Nigeria. Today, China is off that list. India is off that list. We're still there. What did they do differently? That should be the question. What are they doing differently?
Okay. Now, the Ministry of Trade and Investment talked about their response to the tariff is to how somehow mitigate the effect and also focus on economic diversification. Let's have your thoughts on.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we've been talking about this morning, economic diversification. But you don't diversify, by talking about diversification. You diversify
That's just
by doing
because we've been
diversification.
talking about it over and over
yes,
again.
You don't, everybody knows what diversification is. Stock is cheap. But what programs are you now putting into place for you to be able to have these your 65 million young people, most of them educated? Out of these 65 million, you'll be shocked that at least 30% of them or more, have university education, have a college matrix. Now, how are you ramping up? How are you engaging, this force? How are you putting them into use? These are the kind of, it's not to do a speech and then talk about, okay, we're going to diversify. Diversify started 100 years ago. Okay, so if you don't have a diversification program that is measured, that is measurable, okay, that has an implementation plan, then it could just be what it is. We could keep talking about diversification.
Okay, how can businesses and investors in Nigeria respond to this current volatility in the FX market?
First and foremost, two things are going to be happening. The only response businesses have to things like this are they transfer it to me and you. So instead of talking about businesses, you'll be talking about the consumers. Everything is going to, price of bread is going to change. I mean, when they give that price to them, they give it to me and you. And then when me and you don't have it, there's a lull. Okay, you now have a situation where, like I said, we're in a MAD situation, MAD, mutual assured destruction. And everything we hook. There's this popular musician that talks about hooking. Everything hooks. You can't move, I can't move. All of us are a standstill. But again, nature abhors vacuum, like all of us know. So there has to be something we can be able to do to make certain that first and foremost people can afford to buy what these businesses are producing. Otherwise, nobody will buy, nobody will sell. And there'll be total and complete catastrophe or chaos.
Catastrophe or chaos. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Emeka Okengwu. It's been a pleasure having you on the program.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Musa.
Now, Minister of Finance,